Okay, so I want to tell a little story about this thing that happened one time when I was younger. Okay, so I'm about 18, 19 years old, and then one day I noticed that there was this car that was parked in the street, cul-de-sac in front of my house. And it just looked kind of out of place for my neighborhood. There's like two or three guys sitting inside, and it just looked highly suspicious. And then a couple days later, I saw it again. Saw it like maybe three times in the span of a week. Just sitting outside, two, three guys, middle of the afternoon, thinking, what are these, undercover cops? Man? Like, nah, they don't look like cops. Which maybe is the point if they're undercover. But I'm like, no, no. And then I realized, holy shit. I think these guys are like casing some houses on our block, maybe for a burglary or something. Like they look more like burglars than cops. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember I grew some balls at a certain point and actually walked out to the cul-de-sac and started approaching them. Figure they're not going to jump out of the car and do anything in this situation. And they actually took off. I scared them away. And I saw him back again, like maybe, I don't know, the next week. And then finally, I get in my car and start following them when they take off. I followed these assholes for like half an hour, so they finally lost me. And then, at this point, I decide, you know what? I think that my neighbors should know about this. So instead of just knocking on people's doors and, telling people to their faces, like, look out for these guys, give them a description of the car, I always got to get cute and creative, because that's just me. So, I go on my computer, I write a little note, like, again, description of the vehicle, what they're doing in the neighborhood. If you see this car cruising the neighborhood or parked on your block, like, call cops. Because I think they're burglars. And I print out like dozens of these notes and I cut them up in a little strips. So I have like dozens of copies of it. And I start walking around the neighborhood and putting it in everybody's mailbox. I figure like I'm doing a good deed, right? No one's going to call the cops on me for something like this. It's not a crime. I mean, I walked all the way down Sarah Drive, all the way to like Heller Court, which is probably like 3/4 of a mile away. Up and down and back. I don't even know how many mailboxes I put this shit in, but I pretty much covered like half my neighborhood. And then I'm like, okay, great. So I basically forget about it. And I get in my car and go out a few hours. And I come back and there's a fucking Suffolk police car sitting in my driveway. What the fuck? What did I do? As I might have said in my other stories, like, I didn't really get in a whole lot of trouble. Even back then. Nothing to have the cops called on me. And then I saw this cop standing in the driveway with a bunch of pieces of paper in his hand. And I'm like, shit. Really? You call the fucking cops on me when I'm trying to do a good deed and do you a service? Look out for these burglars. So, cop walks up to me. He's like, hey, kid, you can't do this, right? You scared half the neighborhood. And we spent the last, 4 hours investigating this and trying to figure out where it came from. It's like, obviously, this is not a criminal offense. You're not in any trouble. But you really can't do stuff like this. If you're concerned about burglars, call the police. Don't put notes in people's mailboxes. I was like, yes, officer. It won't happen again. And he gets in his patrol car and leaves. But, yeah. I don't know, man. Some people are just fucking Karens. They just feel this need to call the cops over everything, even when you're doing something good, like I said. But that was my little story about this potential burglar that was casing my neighborhood, and me trying to alert my neighbors and be a good Samaritan, and them turning around and calling the cops on me instead. What a bunch of assholes.